Welcome to the Oh You Want to Go There podcast, where we dive deep into our stories as a catalyst for healing and transformation. I am your co-host, Jasmine, holistic therapist, breath and sound healing guide, and founder of Verse Wellness, a digital storytelling platform that centers the stories and holistic well-being of Black women and girls. And
I am also your co-host, Melissa Wainwright, transformation coach and founder of All Things Creative, Creating Me.
all right.
So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, girl, hey.
How you feeling?
I'm good. How you feeling? I'm excellent, though.
You're excellent?
I'm excellent, yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous.
A little bit nervous.
I'm nervous because we're about to put all our business out in these streets.
All our business.
And you know, vulnerability is a thing for me.
It's a big thing for you.
It's a big thing for me, but I think that this could be incredibly healing and incredibly nourishing to people all over, but especially women, Black women, mothers, daughters, those who are considering becoming mothers, those who've been impacted by trauma, those who are currently on a healing journey, healing from trauma.
Yeah.
I think that this could be something really, really special. And so I'm super grateful to be doing this with you.
Super grateful for answering the call. This is something that has
been in the works for a while.
Been in the works for a while, but it is actually, today is our birthday. It's our birthing day.
Wow. You know why that feels so poignant? Because a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about is in connection to mothering and mother wounds and birthing. And it just reminds me that transformation energy is always available to you. You can have a new birthday. You can change your mind. You can change your circumstances. You can change courses at any time.
Anytime.
You are regenerative. That feels good.
It feels great. So, today's our birthday. So we're celebrating and we're sharing it with all of you.
Mm-hmm.
And we are hoping and praying that this comes through the way that we want it to.
Mm-hmm.
Healing, transformation, conversation.
Candid conversations.
Groundwork.
Yes.
Just to understand where we come from. So our vulnerability is here for you.
Yeah, to be used as a framework for exploring your own stories. And so essentially, storytelling can be really transformative as a healing tool. Over the last year, you and I have been having so many conversations about your story and growing up and just your life experiences. And then I feel like I've been the most vulnerable. I've been with you over the last year. And we've been doing a lot of work making connections to those generational patterns and being able to draw connections to the places where you have held on to a lot of trauma in your body. And it was passed down to me.
Absolutely.
And in the ways in which I have unconsciously been living out some of your generational patterns. And I would even go as far to say, maybe they're your mother's generational patterns and maybe her mother's generational patterns. So really exploring the way the maternal lineage, how we carry things from generation to generation. And if we don't look at them, if we don't address them, if we don't give it the intention and attention it needs to be resolved,
absolutely,
we're on a loop, right?
We're on a loop.
And just kind of grounding it. And just saying that, a lot of who I am today is because of you, because of the mother that you have been to me. And by no means a perfect mom.
No means.
But a mom who has been willing to look in the mirror, a mom who has been real, a mom who is willing to take accountability and apologize for your wrongdoings, a mom who's still doing the work and still coming to terms with the impact of some of the decisions that you've made.
Absolutely.
And I think being able to be in relationship with you in a way where I can see the human in you, right? Oftentimes I feel like we can only see our parents through the lens of a parent, but not through the lens of their full humanity.
Yep.
And being able to be on this ride with you has been incredibly healing for me. And being able to share these stories have been incredibly healing for me. And so I say that because we're really about to get into it.
Yeah, we're about to get into it.
Yeah. We're really about to get into it. And so with that being said, I kind of just want to start us off with exploring your journey into motherhood because I am a proud oldest daughter. I wear the title well.
You do.
And and that's kind of one of my flexes. I was the first, right? But in reality, I am the first child that you mothered.
You are my first child that I mothered. You are not my first child that I birthed.
Mm.
So you're
Mhm.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
There is a difference there.
There's a
So,
difference.
Yeah.
And I think when we dive deeper into the conversation of just like wounds and trauma and the impact that it's had on
Mhm.
us for generations, I think a lot of that experience starts, some of it before this story, but like for me, definitely with this
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like why don't you paint a picture for us? So give
Well-
us the overview or of your introduction to motherhood.
Introduction to motherhood was me
Mm.
at 14
Mm.
years of age.
Mhm.
I was 8th grade, junior high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I got pregnant in junior high school,
Mm-hmm.
and it came out by way of me being at cheerleading practice and me being discovered that I was pregnant. I knew I was pregnant, but I hid it. And
So you were intentional about hiding it?
I was intentional about hiding it. By the time I missed my second period,
You knew.
I knew
Mm-hmm.
more than likely I was pregnant. Had I taken a pregnancy test or anything? No, I had not. I just kind of...
You was just winging it.
I was winging it.
You was like,
14,
okay.
I'm winging it. I'm definitely like, I'm out here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So 14, pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
My mom calls me in her room one day. I'm coming home from school, basically asked me point blank, are you pregnant? Do you got something to tell me? And I'm like, no, I don't have anything to tell you. And she's
wait, can I ask you, when you responded no, was your instinct to just like
lie?
There was no part of you that felt like I should own it in this moment? Okay.
No.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, I was sticking with what
you had told yourself.
I told myself.
Okay.
Not pregnant.
All right.
So she was like, well, I got a call from school today. You know, I mean, y'all know mothers, love her, but, you know, she's a mom raising 5 girls on her own right now. Mom and dad's divorced at this time. And she's like, this is another thing on my plate that I have to worry about. And this just ain't about to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, no. Mm-mm. And I stuck to it, and she was like, well, I got a call, and someone seems to believe that you're pregnant. And I was thinking in my head, like, who? I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell...
So at this point, you haven't told anyone?
No.
You was holding this.
I was holding it. Yeah, so the fact that someone called and busted me out, and I could only think it was for me being in cheerleading practice when we were, you know, doing our routines, and I was on stage, and our side was sitting in a holding pattern, waiting for our turn. And I unconsciously wasn't sucking in my stomach. Right? You know, I'm a petite thing at this time. I'm not, you know, the mom that you know, right?
Yeah, the curvaceous, bootylicious.
I'm not
Jackson.
That. I am straight up and down. I might have been pushing a size 2, 3.
Wow.
Yeah, I was not a big girl at all. So... yeah, I'm like, no, I'm not pregnant. And I'm trying to trace in my head. And she's like, oh, well, no worries. Your god sister's going to pick you up tomorrow from school. And she's going to take you to get a pregnancy test. And I'm like, okay. So, of course, now in my head, I'm trying to figure out how not to be pregnant. Because
when you say figure out how not to be pregnant, you mean like how to make the pregnancy test negative? Or
Absolutely. Like that. I'm just trying to figure out how to make my lie stick.
Okay.
Like, I'm not pregnant. Now she's going to send me to someplace to get a pregnancy test. Now what I got to do?
So where did you go?
Planned Parenthood.
Okay. And so you went to Planned Parenthood. So, okay, so maybe just backtrack with us for a little bit. And so how far along did you said 2 periods were missed.
Yeah.
So you were showing a little bit. And so it was evident that you were pregnant. You went to Planned Parenthood. And then just like walk us through.
Well, by that time that she found out more than 2 periods was missed, I knew I was pregnant after 2 periods missed.
Okay, I got you.
So by the time I got to Planned Parenthood, I mean, I know in my mind I'm good and pregnant, but, you know, they hand me the cup, you know, it's very transactional. Just go, get undressed, give us a sample, meet us back in this room. And I'm like, okay. So I do what and I'm on the table, they do an exam. He's like, okay, you can get up and get dressed. Yeah, you're 4.5 months.
Wow.
Here's some information, take this home to your parents. And and that was it. And I'm thinking, crap.
I just find it amazing. Like you You're thinking crap. The whole time you knew. It just goes to show like the mind of a kid. It's just like, were you just feeling like if I didn't acknowledge it, then maybe it couldn't be true? Or were you going to try to hide it until, like,
I just felt
did you have a
like
plan?
I didn't. My plan was just to fake the funk until I couldn't no more. And I guess this was the stopping point, you know, of faking the funk.
Okay.
So I was just going to plan to, hide it as long as I could, suck it in, do what I needed to do, to not be discovered.
Yeah.
But that only lasted so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you're pregnant.
Pregnant.
You were sent home with some information.
Sent home.
And so then give us a little bit of insight to what happened.
So
How did
by
you
the
tell your mother?
time, I didn't have to tell her. By the time I reached the door, she already knew.
Well, how did she know?
They called. I'm sure they called. They had to call because, like, I got to the door and she called my name again, Melissa, and I'm like, and she was like, yeah, I got your results.
I don't know. I'm having like a visceral bodily reaction, and I think, and the reason why I'm having a visceral bodily reaction because I've heard this story so many times. We've mulled over it, and not to stop your story, but to take myself and imagine myself as you as a 14-year-old person. I can't imagine like the emotion, the feeling, just like what was going through your head, like what was going through your like. I can't imagine that. That feels like a lot. And the social worker in me, the therapist in me just have so much compassion and so much empathy for you having to hold that and not, I don't know. I just wanted to like acknowledge that, but I do want you to continue with the story. So she already knew.
She knew. I knew. It was just evidence now.
Okay.
And basically she was like, you're pregnant. You're way further along than, anything. An abortion is not an option. And it was just, it's not an option.
Wasn't that an option because you were too far along, or wasn't that an option because you grew up in church?
I grew up in church. It was our faith. It was just not on the table. Yeah, that was not, that was not a thing. And the last words I heard her say, and you're telling your dad.
So let's paint the picture of your father for just a moment, because he is old school, Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal,
born and raised,
saved, sanctified, fire baptized. Okay, honey,
all of the things.
And you were a preacher's daughter.
Yeah,
and so like that's like a. That feels like an important piece to the story. You a preacher's kid. So you're 14 years old and you're pregnant and you're a preacher's kid. And your mother is letting you know now that, oh, and by the way, you're telling your father.
Correct.
So what was going through your head in that moment when you...
As a 14-year-old, I'm like, and I'm not. I'm like...
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you feel a little bit relieved that she knew?
I did, but she was so angry and upset. And as a 14-year-old, you're not considering all the factors, right? So I was just like, oh my God, I caused stress.
Take your paper for this second.
Like, I caused stress. I caused anger. Like, I'm in a hot seat.
You feel, I get that. Like when you're in trouble, you're like, dang, all eyes on me.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be.
You didn't want to be that person.
I didn't want to be that person. But here I was. I was that person. So that night, my dad did come over to the house. And he usually comes and brings me and Claire, this is just always some kind of trinket. And there were some watches. I just remember them being, those little swatch watches that you slap on your wrist or whatever. And Claire came down the stairs. I was already downstairs, and Claire came down the stairs, and he was standing at the front door talking to us. And here comes Mom, yelling from the back room again, because her bedroom was off the kitchen in the back of the house. And she was like, heard us having just little casual conversation.
She said,
And here she comes again. She's like, tell him. And I'm like,
and Nani's voice.
Yeah, you know how it is.
She has this, her ability to just conjure up the words, and you feel the reverberation of them. It's just like, that part. Yeah.
That part. So it's just like, tell him. But it came across, tell him, like, stop playing. Stop having this little conversation.
You're doing too much kikiing for me.
While I'm back here holding this.
Wow.
Because she's holding it too.
Yeah, she is.
Right? So I'm like, okay. And he's like, tell me what? Because now, he's like, what? So I just remembered hanging my head. And it was raining outside. I remember the rain hitting the front door, the porch, whatever. And he was just standing in front of the door. Claire's on my right, standing on the stairs. And all I see her do is like, Lord.
Claire is your sister.
My baby sister.
Your baby sister.
That's the youngest.
Yeah.
And she hangs her head looking like, uh-oh. So I'm like, and I just hung my head and closed my eyes and told him in a very low voice, I'm pregnant. And he said, okay. He didn't say much. And to know my dad, he spoke in a very normal monotone voice.
Very soft-spoken.
All the time. There was no, him and Mom was total opposites.
His voice was really healing, to be honest.
Yeah,
like you can just listen to him talk.
Yeah.
He just was very, very soothing.
His singing voice was even better. So he just nodded his head and said, oh, okay. And then handed us the watches and said, okay, I'll talk to you later. And turned around and left. And I just remember going upstairs and crying at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. The tears. Was the tears because you felt like you had disappointed your parents?
Absolutely. All of it. I was causing trouble. Now they're disappointed. All the things.
And so after your parents found out, we knew that termination was not an option.
Not an option.
And so what was like the next step?
I didn't hear anymore after that. The conversation then took place between them two. I didn't talk to Dad after that. Dad and Mom talked.
Okay.
But I went.
So he never circled back around to have a conversation with you. He just said okay, and he left, and there was never.
And that was it. Yeah.
That was the end of the conversation about
correct
the pregnancy.
Correct.
Yeah. Did you have any more conversations with your mother about it?
Yes. The very next day after I got home from school again.
Whatever it is with you with coming home from school, child.
Yes. So it was told to me through my parents that I would be going to a place called a home for unwed mothers. So it's a place where teenagers or unwed moms was housed, and you did everything there. So like it was off the grid. Like when I say off the grid, to me, it felt like it was way off the grid.
Now, the first time you told me the story, I was like, and they shipped her away 5 hours.
Yeah.
And then like a month ago, he's like, it was 45 minutes
and
away
from the house. I mean, in my
as a
mind,
14-year-old kid,
like,
it feels really far, really.
It did, because it was a place I had never been before. And I mean, I remember being in the backseat, driving. I remember the very day that I went, and I was sitting in the backseat, and my mom and my aunt took me. So my aunt was driving, and I'm sitting in the car, and it just seemed like it was forever. Like I'm seeing like country roads now, and
yeah, also considering just the impact of what you were going through. It's like you're now going to this foreign place to live, essentially, to do schooling, to wait it out, I guess, to have your baby.
Yeah. So I arrive at this home, and a Caucasian lady meets us at the door. She's the director, and I want to say her name was, I believe it was Miss Smith. I'm not 100% on that, but she tan tweed skirt and a tan tweed plaid jacket, just put together, and she meets us and welcomes, just big smiles and all that, as, and the place is, by the time we arrived, it was evening, so it was quiet hours. Yes. Everybody had, there was no one else around.
Okay.
So I arrived, she shows me to my room. I have this singular room, very cozy, a bed, nightstand, lamp, side chair, wardrobe. So, I begin, she's like, get comfortable, begin unpack. I'm going to go wrap a few things up. And, she goes back to my mom and aunt and wrap a few things up. And I hear the footsteps getting further away because it felt like this hallway was so long that I had to walk down, but it really wasn't, but it just seemed
it felt like
it was.
Yes.
Right. Anyway, this home is out in Vienna, Ohio, which is like right outside of Youngstown, which is, going towards Warren, Ohio, and going towards that way. Right. So it's not that far. Right. So that's the home. And I will be there. I will have school there. I will have my checkups there. I will have all my interactions in this home.
Okay, so you arrived at the home for unwed mothers. You're now told that you're going to be living there. And so your mom and your aunt dropped you off. And so then, what happens? They leave.
They leave.
But what is the conversation? Is there a conversation? So you're there, and then it's just what was the expectation? It's I'm here, and you're going to have the baby, and then what? What?
The conversation prior to me arriving at the home was I would be giving the baby up for adoption. So my mom and dad decided that the baby would go up for adoption. We just did not have means to raise another kid. Again, my mom and dad are divorced. So, mom used to be an at-home mom. She's now not. She's, working for little or nothing. Taking care of all of us. And, my dad as well. It's no, I don't have the means to raise another kid. We just don't. So the conversation was the baby would be put up for adoption.
So you went into the home knowing that you wouldn't be able to keep your baby?
Correct.
Okay. So now you're at the home.
Yep.
You're living out your days there.
Living out my days there.
Just tell me a little bit about your experience in the home.
The home was actually not so terrible once I acclimated to being away from home. Now, mind you, there's no cell phones then. There's no World Wide Web. We ain't Googling and doing.
So you didn't have really a lot of access to your parents, your sisters.
Letters.
I
was sent with a book of stamps.
Okay.
Yeah, and notebook paper. So
that was thoughtful.
Yeah, so we wrote all the time, especially me and Claire, because, me and Claire was, she knew all the things, right? Yeah. So she kept me abreast of all the things that was going on in school. And all the things that was going on.
All the tea.
And all the things that was going on at home. So, yeah.
So she kept you in the loop.
Yep, she kept me in the loop. Absolutely.
Okay. And so just talk to me a little bit about, you're in the home, you're making connections, and at the same time, there's just an awareness that you're not going to be able to,
There's a huge awareness because the difference with me and the rest of the girls is everyone else was keeping their children.
Wow, so you were the only one who was giving your baby up for adoption.
Yes.
And how did you feel about the decision that was made for you to give the baby up for adoption?
I tried to fight the decision the whole time. I bucked as much as I could. I brought it up as much as I could. Well, Mom, if we do this, I could do this. If we try to do that, And she was just no.
Not hearing it, yeah.
That's not going to work. We just, And then at one point in time, she did say, maybe we can talk about it.
Okay.
But I feel like it was just to have me stop having the conversation because, I assume it was just as hard as for her.
Yeah. No, for sure. You're her baby girl. You are her baby girl.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm okay, well, can we try this, or whatever. In a 14-year-old mind, I'm coming up with like
Yeah.
14-year-old ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I really thought I could be pregnant and no one.
No, for sure. Like, it literally
Right.
didn't make any sense. So you're there,
There.
but everyone back home isn't aware. It was from the way that you described it to me, and you feel free to put it in your own words. It was kind of like this big secret.
It was a secret. It was a big secret. It was a big secret that wasn't so much a secret, though. Because, I mean, Youngstown is like...
Yes, very small.
So if one person get wind...
Then everybody know.
That's it.
So where did the people think that you were?
Okay, so me and Claire came up with this elaborate story that when I had to leave, that I would be going to stay with my uncle and my aunt that lived in Hawaii. He was stationed in Hawaii in military.
Okay.
So I would go there.
Okay.
And I was going there. Just
for... Because y'all got it like that. Vacation, just a new lived experience.
Yeah, I'm going to live in Hawaii.
So they told people you were going to live in Hawaii. So no one knew. So now you're at this home for unwed mothers, and this opportunity comes along to showcase your experience in the home. Talk to me a little bit about that.
That was, yes. So again, no one knows. And when I say no one, I mean like my immediate family in the house and my dad knew. But like even aunts and uncles and cousins, like
no one knew.
That was not information that was given and shared, right?
Okay.
So it was quiet. So assuming no one knew, right? So the news station comes to do an interview on this newly, and they had just really established this home.
Okay. So it was new.
Yeah, for unwed mothers in Vienna, Ohio. Yes. And it came through the charities department, right? So, and it was a Christian organization. And so they, we had church there, Bible study, all the things, right? So they wanted to come and do the story on the girls and whatever. I knew that I couldn't be seen or heard.
Because no one knew.
Because no one knew. Right. And this was an open story. So they were like, well, we could block you out. And we'll muffle your voice and we'll put like the black dot over you, the silhouette.
I'm like, but they didn't need parental. I guess they signed over the consent forms when you went to the
right.
So they said they would do all these things because you're like, I can't be seen because this is going to be aired on the news.
Because it's going to be on the nightly news.
Okay, and
it was like the nightly news, and I think it was an article too that ran in the newspaper. So at this time, I'm just like, well, I can't do it, and they're like, coming up with different ideas, and they're like, and I'm like, well, you sure? And they're like, yeah. For sure. We can block you. We can muffle your voice. No one will know it's you.
First of all, the technologies back in the day weren't even good.
I mean, this is 1986.
I imagine it was like, I'm Melissa. No, I'm a new resident of the home for unwed mothers. A day in my life. We started at the doctor's office. Right. Remember those detective shows that used to those unsolved mystery shows? Like that's what's coming to my brain.
And that's just how it was too. So, I'm like, okay, then I'm in. I'm game. Because now I can be included. I'm not another exclusion.
Okay.
Right? Because it wasn't just me doing it. It was some other girls doing it too. So now I can be included. So I'm there and they're walking through the life with me, my studies, the work we have to do. We did breakfast together. We cleaned together. My doctor's appointments was there. The nurses and stuff would come and do your checkups. They went in the room, had the little dot, had the, blocked out the name, didn't have a name or anything, So all the things. And then, there was a sit-down interview in the end, and they wrapped up, and they was like, okay, great. It'll be on, the nightly news. And I want to say it was Channel 10, but I can't really remember.
Yeah.
I mean, because I tried to deep dive and try to find it, and I didn't find it. I tried to go to the archives, so maybe I need to find some.
If y'all have that footage, please, somebody, if you have the footage, if you remember it being aired, we need it for the history.
For the history. So anyways, I do this thing. I didn't tell them. I didn't tell my parents. I'm like, I'm here. What goes on here goes on here. And I didn't think nobody was going to know it was me. So I didn't do it. I mean, so I did it. So I didn't tell them.
Okay.
I'm moving right along. Baby, by that time that thing aired, Oh my God. Child, I was getting phone calls.
Who was calling you?
Oh, my mama, my daddy, everybody.
Saying what?
They was like, why are you on the news?
So you weren't blocked out?
I was. So they did have the big black silhouette over me, but Youngstown is 2 seconds too big. And if you know a person, even with the silhouette, you know a person.
Yeah, so you became the silhouette girl.
So I became the silhouette girl. So listen, Clairac School trying to dodge questions, Darlad School trying to dodge questions. People like, we know that's your sister. We seen her. She the silhouette girl. That's the silhouette girl.
Wow.
And I don't know if they named the story that. I can't remember. But the silhouette person came up when me and Darla was talking not too long ago. Okay. My sister, Darla's sister number 3. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yeah, I remember that story. You was the silhouette girl. And I was like, that's right.
You was the silhouette girl.
I was the silhouette girl.
Wow. So pretty much everybody knew.
Yes.
It kind of got blowed up.
It got blowed up.
I do want to fast forward a little bit from the experience in the home for unwed mothers. So just walk me through the delivery process.
I remember like clockwork, I got up that morning, did my regular routine, went to the bathroom with my little caddy, go brush my teeth, wash my face, use the bathroom. And I went to use the bathroom and I felt something. I was like, well, something don't feel right. And things called a mucus plug broke. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I was like, I need to tell somebody. And I was like, okay. And my nurse was coming that day anyway, because I was at every 2 weeks by that time, and then every week getting a checkup.
Yeah.
So she was coming regularly to check me. So she did. She came and she was like, okay, this is it. Go to your room, get your bag that's prepared, and meet me out front. The ambulance will be here to take you to the hospital.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there like, okay, wait a minute. I'm just like that. Like, what about all my stuff? What about everything? She was like, don't worry about that. We'll take care of everything. I'm going to meet you there. Her name was Tammy. I still remember her. Tammy.
And that's important. We're going to just stick a pin in the name Tammy because I just feel like everything is connected and there's another point in life where this comes back up. And we're going to be exploring
So Tammy is there and she's like, I'm going to meet you. I'm like, well, what about my mom? And now I'm asking all the questions. I'm like, oh, it got real. It's real now.
Yeah.
Once I got on the ambulance ride there, I'm like, okay, this is happening. This is happening. Now, I wasn't in much pain yet. It was just little cramps at that time, right? So by the time I arrived to the hospital and got to the room, they were waiting on me. They called ahead. They knew I was coming. I was in a private room, and they hooked me up to all these machines, and I'm just in there. Now, the pain is getting real. It's, my mom has shown up by now, and the pain's getting real, and I'm like, oh, my God, like, this is for real. Like, I'm in pain, which you couldn't do. They're like, you just got to breathe through it. There was no medicine. It was none of that. It was, we going in.
Okay, a natural
all
birth,
natural.
All natural.
Yeah. So, they rubbed my back. They was like squat. They were like trying to walk and breathe, all the things. And then I just remember the final check, her saying, okay, it's time. And I remember them rolling me out on the gurney to the delivery, because that time you didn't deliver in the same room.
I got you.
It was a separate room.
Labor and delivery.
Yeah. So they rolled me out, and I remember going and all the bright lights that was in, and they moved me onto this table, and they had the big sheet, and, it was just a lot of things happening with a lot of people really, really fast. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, keep breathing, don't push. I was like, something's happening. And they're like, don't push. They're trying to get me prepared. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, okay, now push, and then don't push, and now push. And Tammy's there with me the whole time, trying to remind me of the Lamaze classes, but all that's kind of like out the window at that time, right? So I'm like, okay, well, pushing, I'm breathing. And they're like, stop, don't push. And I'm like, I can't hold it. So finally I push, and then I hear a baby, and they say, it's a boy. And the baby cries. And then, I hear a lot of movement and whispering, and I'm like, what's the matter? And they're like, no, nothing's wrong. And I'm like, you're not telling me something's wrong. And they're like, no, hold on. And then finally they put the baby on my chest. And
what was that experience like for you, holding your baby for the first time?
I was in so much pain, I don't really remember. I remember looking at the little red face that was just full of, afterbirth and, you know, all of that, and him crying and me wanting to cry. Yeah. And he just laid there. Then he got quiet. You know, they cut the umbilical cord and they got him all cleaned up, and then they watered him back and gave him back to me. And then they took him away to do all the weighing and all that stuff. From what I remember, again, this is now 38 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's a lot. I feel like we should just take a breath because, the things are already rising up in me. So, the part of the reason, like, we're even here is this is a quick interjection to the story time. In, I believe it was December, we watched a show on Hulu called Black Cake. Well, I watched it. We share a Hulu account, so I watched it. And then I called you, and I was like, Ma, did you watch Black Cake? And you was like, yeah. And I was like, so how you doing? How you feeling? Because a lot of the experiences that came up in Black Cake were shared experiences that you have gone through, or just collective experiences that have happened within our family lineage, and being able to see it depicted as it was in the show made it even more real for me. And so there was, and I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't watched it and want to watch it, but there is a scene in which one of the characters was in a home for unwed mothers, and she was delivering her baby, and she was taking care of the baby, like at least for like a period of time, like nursing the baby, washing the baby, just like the foundational things. Yep. And then there came a point in the story where she tried to create a plan to keep her baby, but she was forced to give her baby away. And I remember watching that and just imagining you, like your 14-year-old self, kind of in the same predicament. Yep. And so after you birthed the baby, how did the adoption go? Like, was it immediate? Did it take some time?
From what I know, it was pretty immediate. Like, back then you stayed in the hospital for about a week. Okay. So I was in the hospital about 6-7 days. Okay. And in that time frame, I did get the baby. So the baby came into my room. I held the baby. I changed the baby. I fed the baby. All the things. I was in a private room again, not connected to anyone else. And
did your family visit you and come visit the baby as well, or was it?
No.
It was just you and the baby for a week.
Just me and the baby.
Okay.
So what I do remember is one of the nurses coming in asking me, so you really want to give your baby away? And I was like, so used to the standard quo, because I have been saying it for so long now. Well, this is what I have to do, and it's best for the baby. I can't take care of the baby, so I have to do what's best for the baby. And she was like, do you believe that? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, wow, that's really grown up of you. And I was like, but she looked at me like, I don't believe you.
Was a little sarcastic. Like, oh, wow, that's really grown up of you.
Yeah.
And so
then after that, another experience was the social workers coming upstairs, and I thought that was about the adoption, but it really wasn't. It was about me naming the baby. And they told me I had to name the baby, and I was like, well, why? Because they told me I can't keep the baby, so why would I be naming the baby? Because whoever going to get the baby is going to name the baby. And they were like, but for birth records,
you have to name the baby.
Of you having the baby, you have to name the baby. So I was like, oh, okay. Wow. Okay. So, and she was like, so, give me a name. And so I did. I named the baby Kevin. And honestly, I named the baby Kevin after a good friend of mine, because he was just really kind to me in this whole transition, and
I never knew that.
Yeah, so that's why.
I never knew where you got Kevin from.
Yeah, so it was after just a really good friend.
Okay, so you come to the end of your hospital stay. And now, was there any formal goodbye? You didn't get a chance to meet the adoptive parents. The adoption wasn't open.
No, it was Ohio is. I went through the state of Ohio, and the state of Ohio is a closed adoption state, meaning the adoptive parents does not have to be revealed. There have to be no information given. They don't have to do anything. The only opportunity I was given was to write a letter.
Okay.
And in that letter, I could write out to the child my side of the story or my information or whatever. And it would still be up to the adoptive parents to disclose the letter or give it to the child. And that was my best hope. So I remember, writing this letter in pencil because I didn't want to mess it up. And I wrote really hard so it could press in. And I remember just writing this very long, detailed letter about how I didn't want to give you up, but I can't take care of you. You've always be the apple of my eye. I remember that line because I tried to draw a little apple in there.
And I'm getting emotional.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's like you should be. We always do this. You like Thug Life and I'm somewhere crying.
So, I wrote the letter and I folded it and I put it in there. And I was still home when the garden ad litem came to the house.
I don't even know what that is.
So a garden ad litem is a person appointed by the courts to represent me, my side.
Okay.
And to ensure that I was taken care of, right? So the garden ad litem had conversation, and I was just like, they were like, okay, so are you okay? I'm like, well, I'm doing fine. And they were like, well, we're going to do the adoption. And I was like, well, I really don't want to do the adoption. And I was like, I keep telling people I don't want to give my child away. And
no one's listening. So I'm thinking, okay, if she's for me, because she didn't talk to my mom or my dad, she came for me. And I remember sitting in our front room having this conversation. I'm thinking, oh, this might be my help. This is my chance.
This is it.
This is my advocate.
Yes.
You had an ally.
I had an ally. And she's like, okay, well, but what's best for the baby is, okay, well, we'll talk about it. And I never seen her again. Never seen her again, never heard from her again.
She never came back?
She never came back.
What an advocate.
She never showed back up. So she was there at the adoption, though.
So you were at the adoption?
No. So maybe a week or so later, remember, this is 38 years ago, so I don't have all the time lines 100%. So shortly after that, I remember going down to the courthouse building, the annex, and I remember them putting me and my mom in a room and them bringing papers in and saying, you need to sign these papers. And I was like, I'm not signing the papers unless you bring my son here so that I can see him and say goodbye. And they were like, well, we'll see what we can do. No one ever brought him. And I was like, well, I'm not signing the papers. Me thinking, okay, well, if I don't sign them, it can't happen. So then I have my mother sitting there like, you're going to sign the papers. And I'm like, I'm not signing. And they're like, you're going to sign the papers. And then they were like, I was like, well, it doesn't matter if I sign anyway. The father hasn't signed. And they were like, yeah, they've already signed.
Wow. So he signed off the rights.
Yeah. So I was now out of options because I was pulling all the strings that
you could pull.
I thought I knew to pull.
I want to get into, not to jump around, but just your transition back into normal life, because all of this happened. You had a baby, and now...
I had a baby in March. I went back to school in May.
So you had a few weeks off for recovery, and you went to school in May. And what was it like transitioning back into school?
I mean, I hated it because now, I was supposedly in Hawaii. I don't have no Hawaiian tan or anything coming back, but I'm like 50 pounds heavier. Nothing, I went away this little skinny kid, and I'm coming back this bigger kid, and none of my clothes fit, so.
And how did the school receive you? Like, was everyone curious?
Of course.
Did they ask you questions?
Yeah, I mean, I was called into the office. And I was again, and I was told that I would not have conversation or disclose any information about me being away.
So they told you that you couldn't tell?
Yeah.
Huh. Did you honor that?
I did. For the most part, I did.
Talk to me a little bit about like what the dynamics were like once you got back into school.
You know, once I got back in and things, you know, the one thing about kids, they're resilient. They kind of just like, it's a hot topic one day.
And they move right along.
Into the next thing. So, you know, I was only a hot topic for a minute. I mean, because let's just be real, at the end of the day, everybody knew. They knew without knowing.
You know, I really want to lean into like this idea of the silhouette girl, because you and I had a conversation, and one of the things that you said to me, it was so poignant because I was able to make a connection with myself in real time. When you shared it, you were saying like, when I got back into school, everyone had an idea about me.
Everybody.
And everyone started to treat you in accordance to whatever the idea they had in their head. Like, oh, like she's fast. She gonna take your man. Oh, don't hang out with her because she's promiscuous. Like all of these different
all the different things.
Yeah, labels that were placed on you because
of my pregnancy.
Because of your pregnancy.
So yeah, in fact, you know, I remember very plainly there was different girls that was like, yep, she fast, she gonna try to take your man or whatever. Then there was boys that was like, yep, she loose, so yep, I could probably get at her, you know. Yep, been there, done that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I can remember just plainly one time going over one of my girlfriend's house, and her mom, I remember I heard her, I was in her room, and her mom and her was in the kitchen, and she said, ain't that the girl that was pregnant? Don't let this become contagious. Don't let this, you know, don't get caught up. As if,
so you kind of were like out, like, I don't know if outcast is the appropriate word, but it almost felt like there was no real space for you. Like you went back into school, you couldn't really share about your experience. This, first of all, it's really traumatic to just go through an entire pregnancy to have a baby and then to not have your baby and then not be by your own decision. Like you're not the same person. Like you're changed. Like you have birthed a life. A whole human, and you were told to carry on as if nothing happened. And so
because now everybody could breathe now, because now everything was back to normal. There was nothing looming, you know, but then at the same time there was everything looming. You know, I can remember going to our family reunion and my cousins being very rude and ignorant, like, well, where's your baby? We know you had a baby, you know, things like that, you know. Just
Did you embody the characteristics people placed on you?
Eventually, yeah. So, yeah, I kind of did. So, because you want me to be that way, or that's what you think, now it's a challenge. So, okay. Yeah.
When I said the connection was made for me, one of the words that you said was like, nobody could really see me.
Nobody could see me.
Nobody could see me. Not in the way that you wanted to be seen. They only seen the identities that they were placed on you. And what clicked for me, I was like, wow, Mom, like I've been in therapy for 3 years talking about how I feel so unseen. And I know that sounds wild because I've been seeing
do all the things.
I've done all the things.
All the
things. And so, and I've been trying to process with my therapist, like I just feel so unseen. And I feel very much so, in some ways I'm like, man, like I'm low-key like the silhouette girl. Like people have their own ideas about like who I am,
of you, but they never getting the full picture.
Never get the full picture, and sometimes it's always in connection to like what I do. But the identities that were placed on me were very different from the ones that were placed on you, because you were very intentional to make sure that, in your words, I would be nothing like you. Which is wild to me, because growing up, I remember oftentimes saying to you, like, wow, Mommy, I want to be just like you. I just always was an admiration of you. You were beautiful. Like, you had a style. You had colored hair. You were just so cool to me. And you would be like, you're not going to be like me. You're going to be better than me. And that was always your response. And I didn't get that. I was like, I'm just trying to
give you a compliment.
I'm trying to give you a compliment. But I also really did want to be like you. And we're going to get into this in like later episodes, but a lot of the ways in which I have been mothered by you has been through the lens of you trying to train me to be completely different than you. And so the different identities that I begin to embody is You're going to be the super good girl. You're going to get straight A's. You're going to be I literally had no room for error. Like, you're in the house. You're holding down the household. Like, you're working your job, and no, you can't have no boyfriend. Like, my father was way more lenient than you. Like, I could have a boyfriend at my dad's house for the summer, in which I did. And when I would go back home, it would just be like, sis, like, let me live. And I would beg him, like, can you please talk to my mother? Like, she does not let me live. And so in time, I feel like this, I don't know, I'm going to call it a wound of being unseen. That's not like, I don't know if that's like a real thing, but it feels real for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I begin to embody all the things that I knew would render praise and affirmation and would get you to see me favorably. And I thought the more that I did those things, I would prove to you that somehow in the back of my mind, I knew you were trying to get me to not be like you. So I was like, if I am just like super smart and I get straight A's, and if I keep the house clean, and if I'm kind to everyone, and if I'm, I'm baby, like all the things, eventually it will click for her that I'm good. I'm a good kid. I'm not like her. I'm not going to make the same mistakes as her. Like, I was so afraid of the idea of being pregnant early because, and I didn't know this story until like later down the line, and it began to make more sense for me. I didn't learn the story to maybe like 7th or 8th grade, and my cousin kind of told me on a low because she overheard the adults talking. And for me, it was pure joy. I couldn't wait to have a brother. I was like, I'm on a mission to find him. But just the impact of that experience for you had really, you mothered me in a way that I don't know. I just felt like nobody could really see me. And even as an adult, I feel like it's carried into my adulthood life, how I show up a lot in spaces, trying to work and prove that I'm worthy of like being there so that people can see me. And I'm never satiated, because at the end of the day, it's always in connection to like performance, but not just the essence of just like who I am. Like, I don't know, and I'm learning this now, like, who is Jasmine outside of like what she do, outside of being smart, the go-getter, kind, sweet. For so long, it was the good girl persona.
But you're all those things and more, and it is who you are. I know that you keep trying to make a separation for the two, because in your mind, as coming up, I had a distorted view of what I wanted you to be.
Okay. And what was that?
Not me. So not the girl that got pregnant, not the one that wasn't so smart, not the one that was looked at like Luke, not the one that was all the things that, all the labels that was placed on me, I wanted to protect you from. So I rode hard. I did, and yeah, I rode you hard.
Yeah, you rode me hard. And I think like as a full-grown adult, like we've been having this conversation. Like, I struggle with like being able to integrate the various aspects of just like my identities, all the various, because we're multidimensional, like we're not one thing, right?
Right.
And I feel like I've clinged to one thing for so long, and then and I've told you like, man, I really thought my goodness would save me, and now I'm 30. I'll be turning 35, and I'm like, wow, I did all these things, and it counts for something. Like, I'm so blessed, and I've been really successful, and God is amazing. But there's still like this other part of me that I felt like I've had to just like, maybe it's like, I don't know,
suppress
like my own, and I feel like it robbed me of a lot of like experiences. And I have this desire, and it's wild because I have this desire to be seen, but then I also have to sit with the fact that I also do not let people see me. And we think about the Silhouette Girl, there is a deep level discomfort with letting people like
see you,
really see me, though that is like one of my deepest desires, is to be seen and not in connection to what I do or just the mass that everyone, whatever their initial perception of me is, but to be met in the deepest layers of my soul. And in sitting with that, I feel like I have been coming to terms with the fact that maybe it's not so much that I want people to like see me, but I want to live in a way that is fully integrated, embodied, mind, body, soul, action, the way that I show up, the way that I move through the world. It is being able to live in my most authentic voice and self, and no longer be confined by like, and you don't place those things on me anymore. Like, you give me so much spaciousness to just be the full embodiment of who I am, but it's really hard to do that.
Come outside of what you've been trained to be.
Exactly.
And I get it. And that's, I get it. You're trained to, okay, be this way, or, you know, what did I say? A lie told 1,000 times becomes somebody's truth. But so whatever it is that you practice over and over and over and over and over, it becomes a reality for you.
It becomes a reality.
And that's a reality for you, you know, because you practice being good. You made up your mind to do this. You intentionally was like, okay, how do I get out of this pattern? Not even knowing what the real pattern was.
I didn't know what the pattern was. I'm just like, no one sees me. And then everyone's like, everyone sees you.
Like, you're everyone's everything.
I know.
So,
but even that feels weighty and pressurized, because I feel like in order to continue to be everyone's everything, I have to sustain.
You have to keep doing.
I have to sustain, you know?
And it was just like, that goes back to that whole, you know, praise, performance for praise thing. And the more I do it, the more adoration I give you. But that's totally not what I already knew. You was a good girl. I already knew you was smart. I already knew you was brilliant. I wanted you to know it and to stay on the course that, you know, the world wouldn't jade you and you become something outside of that. And that was out of my fear. And that's what we do. We operate out of our fears. Our perspectives come from our experiences and the lens in which we decide to view things from. And because my experience was very negative and very hurtful and very harmful.
And you were carrying the impact of that just through life, and that spiraled in other ways.
You know, although it was done and over with, it was never done and over with inside of me. So then I have you 3 years later, you know, so here's my chance, you know, to be what I wasn't able to be before. You know, but I'm going to make sure you nothing like me.
And the crazy part about all of that is, it's like, it's literally impossible to be nothing like you. I come from you. It's like, it's so impossible to be to not be anything like you. And, you know, I reflect back to that little child, me saying, I want to be just like you. And you're saying, like, no, you're going to be better than me. And then me taking that and say, okay, I'm going to be better than you. And whatever that actually means.
Right.
Up until this point, you know, I feel like I've given my father so much credit for just like creating the foundation of just like who I am. And one day it just clicked for me. It was like, a lot of who you are, your gifts, the way you move through the world, my intuitive abilities, like my ability to feel and connect and to just, it like, that comes from you.
Yeah, but he still has credence in that space, because I feel like, you know, he gave you that grounding and
for sure. My father's amazing.
Love and guidance that
I needed to, like,
you absolutely needed
to ground me. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is, like, I always, and I feel so terrible saying this, I would be like, if it was up to my mother, I kind of would be more jacked. I always say I would be a little bit more jacked up than I am, because, and we'll get into this in later episodes, but like, there was a point in time where I lived with my father for a number of years, and then I transitioned to live with you. So I kind of had the experience of being parented by both.
Right.
And households were completely different. And so I oftentimes say, like, that initial grounding with my father is what saved me, because I had this idea of, almost like I was thinking of you in the ways in which some of those identities that had been, like, placed on you. And I wasn't even there, but more so, I think even in the ways in which, I don't know. I don't even know, like, how, like, that came up for me, but because I didn't have context.
I was about to say, because there was no context given.
No context.
And, you know, you were young when it happened. So you were given very blank information.
Yeah.
Very bland as to why the situation was the way it was. So,
yeah. No, for sure. I think now when I sit with the fact that, like, I'm like, okay, like, I'm aware of this wound, we'll call it, of being unseen, right? And I have this desire to be met in the deepest layer of my soul in a way that transcends any way that I've been experienced before, not in connection to what I can achieve and what I can do, but just for the essence of, like, who I am. And then I was sitting with that and I was like, wow, like, people can only meet you as deeply as you're willing to meet yourself.
That's it.
Right? And so then I'm thinking, like, you got to meet yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go inside and meet yourself in the innermost layers, and you have to reconcile all of these things, all of the anxieties that you feel in connection to the archetype of Jasmine, the prototype of
You
Jasmine.
have to go back to the age, and like I said, you have to dismantle the lies to uncover your truth.
Yeah.
And that means sometimes you're trying to fix, a 30-year-old Jasmine, and the trauma happened at 4. So we have to revisit the 4-year-old Jasmine to repair the damage. And that means not only you going back there, but all that was with you at that time to bring about the change and give the information and the context that's needed so that you could see the truth.
I think in that thought process of people can only meet you as deeply as they meet themselves, what I've landed at is that it's not that I desire to like be seen. I desire to see myself.
Yeah.
I actually
your true authentic self.
Yes.
Not from the lens of my mom wants me to be this and my dad desires
that. Me to be that. Yeah.
Who would Jasmine
how can I want to
show up
authentically express in a way that feels like freedom? I'm striving for freedom in this era of my life. Is giving. I'm getting freer and freer. Like I want to get
and freer.
Shout out to Cardi B. I'm getting better and better. I want to be freer and freer. I don't want to live within the confines of anyone's expectations for me.
No, and that's hard because guess what? The moment you disappoint is the moment that they leave. And I think a lot of that goes back to your unseen wound, which comes at a different topic. A lot of that goes back to
the abandonment
wound for you. And how that shifted you and how that impacted actually who you are right now. Even up in all this big 34 going to 35.
I appreciate you so much because I feel like you create the space for me to be, and this is more recent. I feel like I just held it for so long until like life's in a way where you're like, I need to be able to go to the source. And for me, like you are the source. You birthed me, you carried me, like you were chosen as a divine vehicle to bring me into life. And so we've been able to have these conversations in a way that's been incredibly nourishing and healing, and just is giving me even more permission. Not that I needed permission, but to some degree, I need permission to be able to live and stand in the fullness of like
who you are,
who I am, and who I want to be, which may look not vastly different, but to a degree,
there's some degree, because I totally believe. I know without a shadow of a doubt that you are whole, you are seen, you are actually loved deeply, and living out your greatest journeys, and honestly. You hit the nail on the head. Everybody else sees that. You just don't. Because you've been conditioned to only see so much, or,
to do more.
And that what you've done, you haven't practiced, you haven't learned the art of loving what you've already done and that it was good enough. You always move the bar. I told you this. You always move the bar. So if the bar is at 10, and you hit 10, you move the bar subsequently to 12, and we didn't know. So now 10's not good enough. But you never appreciated 10 because it's below the bar. Even though it was the bar, it's now below the bar because you moved the bar to 12.
Yeah.
So the bar never stays steady with you. The bar is always moving.
Yeah.
And because of that, you never feel adequate or accomplished when the bar was met.
But it's just... I feel like we need like a part 2. This is like a lot of processing because I'm like, and I don't get to blame you all for that, or anyone.
That's just you being an overachiever.
Yeah.
That's you still saying, I have to do more to be more. And you're
so I can be seen and
more.
I'm already the more. And I think it is connecting to like, not see me, but like, see how great I am. But I'm just trying to prove it to myself at the end of the day.
And I carried that for so long. I carried that in everything I did. I one-upped me every single thing that I've done in my life. Every job, every position, every title. It's always been me against me.
And that's my language, like you against you.
It's always been, it's not been me, I got to one up that person, or if it ain't me, I ain't beat. No, it's always been me against me, because I never seen myself good enough. I went to college, not because I love school. I did not. I went to college because somebody told me back in the day that you're not smart enough to learn. You might as well just find a trade. Save your dollars.
So it was like a proving thing.
Yeah.
A lot of it is connected to proving. And it's just amazing to see like the ways in which your life has unfolded due to narratives that have been placed on you, and the way that my life has unfolded due to narratives that have been placed on me
that I carried over to you.
That you carry over to me. And I think if I could offer anyone anything, it would just be to give yourself permission to change the narrative, give yourself permission to maybe meet yourself as deeply as you desire. And that feels really, really, really scary. Like I've been in the depths of I've
been in the trenches.
I've been in the trenches.
Yeah.
Doing
but it's necessary.
The deep work.
I want people to feel comfortable and give themselves permission to revisit the area of their life where it happened. And start there. Because for so many years, I tried to heal the 20-year-old Melissa, and then I tried to heal the 25-year-old Melissa, and then the 30-year-old Melissa. And I'm like, why am I still trying to heal the same wound that keeps coming up, that keeps being rebirthed and keeps opening up?
But it was the 14-year-old.
But honestly, it was before that. It was the 7-year-old Melissa that needed to be healed. That's where it started. It was the 7-year-old, the 7-8-year-old Melissa that needed to go back and address the labels that was being put on me at that time. That just carried over because no one could see me and no one was listening to me. And,
You're number 4 out of 5 girls.
Number 4 out of 5. So, I'm not the first, I'm not the last, I'm not the middle. I'm just in there, get in where you fit in. Kind of deal, I mean, and our parents didn't, do that. But I mean, there was 5 of us. And at the end of the day, there's 5 of us and there's only 6.5 years in between the first and the last one. That's a lot of kids in a little bit of time.
Can I ask you where you are now with just the experience of having a baby and giving him away for adoption? Like, have you resolved it? Like,
I have. When I started to resolve it, when you confronted me.
Yeah.
You gave me permission to be free.
You know what's wild is, so really quickly, and we're going to wrap this episode here in a moment. When I learned about him, it was on a whim. That was in it was in our 50 Cent era. That was when that 50 Cent dropped his debut album. He was playing that album out. We were in Youngstown for my grandmother's birthday. I was at my father's house, and I ended up coming over to my grandmother's house, and my cousin met me and was like, Jasmine. I said, what? She said, you got a brother. And she used to play a lot. I said, you playing? She said, no. I heard the adults talking about it. They were saying they wonder how he was doing. You got a brother. I said, I got a brother? And I said, well, let's ask Nani how many grandkids she has. So we would constantly ask her how many grandkids she has, and she would always say one more than what there actually was. So we would count them up first, and then we would ask. And we did this for a number of years to see if it would ever change. And it never changed. It was always one more. And so for years, I wrote about it in my journal, right, about this brother. And she told me he lived in New York. And I just think, like, it's so amazing how seeds can be planted. Because from that moment, I said, F it, we ball, we go to New York. Like, and so in my mind, I was like, as soon as I'm old enough, I have to find a way to New York. Because I've been dreaming of New York since I have been in the 7th or 8th grade when I found out.
And I never knew why, because I was like, I've never mentioned New York to her.
But I needed to be in New York. And so for me, it's just amazing how everything is, like, connected. But I had so much excitement around the idea because I always wanted a brother, and it just wasn't possible at this moment. And it just made me believe, like, wow, everything is possible. Like, I could, but I did not want to tell you because I also somehow was aware that could have been a very traumatic experience. And I was like, if I come to her and tell her, it is a possibility that she's going to crack. She's going to crack. That could put her in the hospital. Like, maybe she'll spiral. I don't want to be accountable for that. And so I held it for years until it was bursting out of the seams and I could not hold it anymore. And part of the reason was when I found out, I began to make the connection as to why you were so hard on me and why you didn't give me space to breathe. And I was just like, I was at my capacity, like
Right.
with that experience.
Correct.
And so, and so I did confront you, and that was the thing that gave you permission.
It gave me permission to be free. Because I wanted to tell you, but I also wanted to tell you when I thought, okay, she's going to be old enough to understand what adoption is and me being pregnant. And I wasn't even concerned really with you seeing me pregnant at 14. I was more concerned with you understanding the process of me having this kid and giving him away and how that works and why that happened and, you know, there not be any animosity or, you know, and also because for so long, you've been my first child.
Yeah. And I am very, like, you know, you know, like, I'm like, as a person who wants to be seen, it's like, I'm always trying to get my claim to fame. Like, I'm the first. And
So at that point, I'm like, so all these things are running in my mind as in being sensitive for you. But the day that you approached me, and I still remember, I was in my room.
You were in your room. You know what song was playing? Ernest Pugh. Was it Rain? Like Rain on Us?
Rain Down on Us.
Rain Down on Us. Let Your Glory Fill This Place. It was a somber moment. I said, she in there playing her gospel. I was on the phone with my then high school boyfriend. He said, go ask her now. I said, Mom, do I have a brother? It was because that was one of the hardest words for me to muster because I just did not want you to crack. And when you took a deep breath and you was like, yeah, sit down. We'll talk about it. I was like, okay. Like, this was not as catastrophic as I was imagining.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that you have been able to go through the journey and do the work to free yourself. And I feel the impacts of that healing because honestly, when we do the work to heal, it's never just for us. Like, we heal for those who came before us. We heal for those who's going to come after us. Like, the healing, the essence of the work that we're doing can be felt generationally.
And that's no lie.
And I think because of that moment of you being able to address it and move through it, I've been able, and more things too, which we'll get into. I feel the impact of the work that you do, and I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful for that. And so I want to just thank you for sharing your story because that was a lot.
It's a lot.
That was a lot. I appreciate your vulnerability, and it's your story, and you own it.
I own it.
And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the mother that you've been to me. I'm grateful for the work that you've done. In this podcast, we say, oh, you want to go there because we're gonna take it there. But one of the places that we're gonna take it to is giving you space to be reflective of how you can integrate the lessons, extract from our stories, and be able to support you on your own healing journey. So we have homework. We're gonna be giving you reflections at the end of each episode. And so I want to share this week's reflection with you, which is, in what ways are you showing up as a silhouette in your own life? Living in the identities that were placed on you, what's asking to be released so that you can be your most integrated, embodied self. So sit with that, and maybe journal it out, maybe reflect on it, and maybe you'll find some new level of insights, inner wisdoms that will come up for you to give you what you need to continue on the journey as you show up and do the work. And so, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of Oh, You Want to Go There?
Oh, you want to go there?
Oh, you want to go there? Because I can take it
there.
Into the deep with Jasmine and Melissa. Please, please, please follow us on Instagram at Versed Wellness, VERSED Wellness. Also at Simply Jasmine B.
Mine's is Create in Me.
Create in Me. Please like and subscribe and share. If you love this and you want to see more of this, if this has done anything for you, any gems have been extracted for you, please like, please subscribe, please share, please.
Let us know if there's something that you would like to hear, if there's any specifics that you would like us to even give or talk about
for future episodes.
For future episodes that may have something that still may be intertwined in some of the stories that we do want to tell. Our stories is, our stories, and we know that every lived experience is not the same.
Yep.
But what is the same is everybody has a story.
Yep.
And a lot of times we hide them, we water them down. We don't share them, and we live in fear of them. So hopefully this podcast will give you permission to live fearlessly inside of your story and be able to take it, share it, and help someone else, or just help you do the work to get to the place that you ultimately want to be in your life.
Amen. Amen, amen, amen. The doors of the church is closing. It's closing.
We're done.
Yes, we're done.
Thank you.
Last thing, rate and review.
Rate and review.
I said like, subscribe, and share, but rate and review.
We
will see you on the next week for another episode. All love.